All right, guys. I thought I would give you a few more notes on probability, and then I'm going to go over some of the handouts and kind of let you work through all of it at your own pace, okay? You do not have a copy of the handout that I'm about to do, but what's on this handout won't be hard for you to just copy onto a piece of paper or to just put on the back of a handout or something to have the notes. I just kind of wanted to go back through some of the critical vocabulary and that kind of thing. So let's look at some definitions. Got these cool pens. They write two different ways. So I'm going to try. We're going to see what they do. Probability. So what is the definition of probability? And probability is a math concept that describes the likelihood or chance that a particular event will occur. So probability, a math concept. That's cool, isn't it? These came from the 5-quarter store. A math concept that describes the likelihood or chance that a particular event will occur. All right, so probability, a math concept that describes the likelihood or chance that a particular event will occur. So I'm going to flip this over for a minute because now I want to talk to you about the two types of probability, okay? There is theoretical probability. And theoretical probability is what should happen. And when we set up a theoretical probability map, when we're doing our little bridge maps to do theoretical probability, we're going to do what I want. And we'll do that as a WIW. You'll see me writing WIW over all I have. And I just usually do all on the bottom right there. Okay? And then we will put our event, or whatever the event is, over here. We are doing simple probability. And I'll come back to the front and tell you about that in a minute. Then we have experimental probability. Experimental probability is what does or did happen. And we set that up as what I got over all I did. And I use WIG over AID. Okay? What I got over all I did. So when you were doing the lab the other day, we talked about both of these. If you haven't watched the whole video with the lab, you do need to go back and do that, okay? So look at this dice. Theoretical probability of rolling a 1. So if I wanted a 1 right here, the theoretical probability would be 1 out of 6. That's what should happen. Okay, so 1 out of 6 on any number on here. 1, 2, 3. The theoretical probability of rolling any one of these numbers is 1 out of 6. That's theoretically. That's what should happen. But of course, if you start rolling this dice and start recording and I start actually doing it, that's experimental. And when you're looking at the problems that we're going to be looking at, I'm going to point out to you as we go through them, experimental versus theoretical, so you can see, okay, we actually did this. And so we're going to be having to look at it from a theoretical lens versus looking at it from an experimental lens, okay? Same thing with these. The theoretical probability of getting any one of those colors would be 1 out of 4. But then when I start spinning it, that could be a little bit different. And then again, any one of those numbers would be 1 out of 9. You know, there's only 1 there, okay? So that's the difference in theoretical versus experimental probability, all right? So then let's look at what is the definition of an event. And I'm actually looking these up in my... An event is a specific set of outcomes from a random experiment considered as a subset of samples, blah, 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 blah. So, an event is an outcome or set of outcomes from an experiment. We're going to water it down to that. All right? So, an event is an outcome we won't be talking about events that much because we're only going to be doing simple probability, and simple probability only has 1 event. If we got into more compound probability where we were doing 2 events, where we were flipping a coin and rolling a dice, then understanding what an event is a little bit more critical. All right, so an event, an outcome or set of outcomes resulting from an experiment. All right, again, the type of probability that we are going to be focused on is going to be simple. Simple probability, and simple probability only has 1 event. We're only going to be doing 1 thing at the time. We used to have to do compound probability with simple probability, but we don't have to do that anymore. And so then let's quickly just look at the definition of an outcome. So it's a single possible result. So the outcome is the possible result of an experiment or a trial. So your outcome is going to be possible results results or trial. So basically, if you're going back to our spinner right here, that spinner has 4 outcomes. The 4 outcomes are red, blue, green, or yellow. So if we do our experiment, we do our trial, we spin that spinner, one of those, it's going to land on one of those colors. Those are the 4 outcomes for that spinner. The outcomes from that spinner are the numbers 0 through 9. And the probability is actually going to be 1 out of 10. And the outcomes of this would be numbers 1 through 6, rolling a number 1 through 6. So there's a difference in an outcome versus the probability, okay? We've spent a good bit of time, talking about this probability spectrum, but I wanted you to see it one more time. This, instead of calling this less likely, this is going to be unlikely. And this is going to be likely. That's the words that we would use. So 0 being impossible, 0.5 or 1/2 being equal odds or an even chance. And certain being 1, okay? If we were thinking in terms of percent, this would be 50%. This would be 100%, okay? So anything between here and here is considered likely. So anything greater than 1/2 would be considered likely. Anything less than 1/2 would be considered unlikely. Now, if it's pretty close to that, I would say anything over, in my opinion, I would say 0.6 and up is going to be likely, and 0.49 and down is going to be unlikely. Because if you've got anything in the 50-ish, from 0.5 up to 4, from 0.5 all the way to 0.59, I would kind of throw that in the, or maybe 5.5. Let's change that to 5.6. I don't know. We'll just say 0.5, roughly in there. That's going to be kind of an even chance. Then when you get to 0.6 or 60%, you're up here. This is 0.49 or 49% would be unlikely, and then impossible and certain. Okay? And so that's just some other notes that I wanted to kind of go back through with you. All right? So the first thing and then I'm going to do another video. So those are your notes on the probability. Those are just your probability notes. Get those down on a sheet of paper, and there we are. There we go. Here's your probability notes. We're going to get those on a sheet of paper, and just wanted you to have a little bit extra. There you go.